In a world filled with challenges and opportunities, it's not just about having big dreams, it's about having the right approach to turn those dreams into reality. Whether you're navigating the competitive landscape of business or seeking personal growth, it's all about the approach.
And welcome to our next episode of The Approach. I'm so glad for you that have joined. This show is about what are the approaches, the leadership that we need to take in problem solving. This goes back to my background in the military. I was an interrogator and worked in intel. And so everything about our job was about the approach. And so when you look at leadership and when you look at problem solving, whether it's in business, military, or whatever venue you're in, it's all about the approach and trying to find the right approach so that you can get the job accomplished. My guest today, I've been so excited to have this guy on. He and I've had some, conversations along the way, and he is truly an amazing dude. So life has been a wild ride, an amazing adventure for TD Richardson. With 26 years of service in the United States Marine Corps and the Navy SEALs, he embodies the principles of toughness, discipline, leadership, and drive with an extraordinary number of deployments and operations. These characteristics have not only shaped his military career, but has also fueled his passion for service in every facet of life, from leading platoons and joint task forces to engaging with church groups and community teams. After an illustrious military education and career, he founded Define Savagery to impart critical life skills honed on the battlefield to those in the boardroom and beyond. His mission is to help individuals realize their maximum internal strength and approach life's challenges with unwavering intensity. With no further ado, let's welcome TD Richardson to the stage.
What's going on?
How are you?
Man, I'm great. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, TD stands for total destruction, or as he's referenced, total dysfunction, whichever way you want to go with it.
Only of the English language. That's it.
So tell everybody a little bit more about you. I've read your bio. What do you want people to know about you?
How to be better, right? I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but what I've got is a lifetime of mistakes and a little bit of success, the learning points, and turning them into a hot wash or an after action report, and be able to make folks do better, realize their dream, and maybe take them to a place that they didn't think they could before, whether that's motivation, whether that's inspiration, or whether it's through tactics, techniques, and procedures and things that I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to give us a little bit of background, how you got to this point and what led you to want to follow this path?
I tell you, it's by the grace of God, number one. I should have been dead a couple 30 times over. But I think everybody's got their own journey. Like you said, man, mine's been a wild ride. And I've been able to meet some amazing people and go through some fantastic things to be able to come back, tell the stories, and tell the lessons learned to help folks out and get them heading in the right direction, whether it be in business or in life.
So usually one of my first questions is looking at your background and everything that you've gone through and experienced, and then now you're imparting into other people. Right. Is there anything that's unique within your background or scenarios that you feel like would be different than other industries that somebody could learn from as far as an approach?
The thing is, man, I could answer that in totality if I knew every other industry, but I don't. If I look at it like I did in the military, as the rest of the businesses are the enemy, and I have to turn the map around and look at it from their perspective, honestly, to me, it's the same as going and leading an effective fighting force. And whether that's unique or not, I know there's a lot of other vets, speaking to one, that uses the very same approach. So unique, probably not. However, leading the way that I do, I think that kind of will set us apart. And it's the wisdom that I will try to impart to the other CEOs that I'm talking to to make their businesses a lot better too, of what the approach is. And that approach is leading with compassion, humility, and keeping it real, man.
Yeah. So when you go into businesses, I know that you've been asked to come in and do an evaluation and assessment, both of the leadership and the structure and how the processes are going. What are some of the things that you look for?
Mistakes. I look for problems.
Yeah.
Right. It's everything from the first impression to whoever greets me at the door to all of the interactions that I have with the individuals that are in that company, all the way up to the head shed, the boss, I look at the infrastructure and I try to find holes and gaps. That's what it is. It's honestly doing the exact same thing that you would doing an analysis of an enemy, right? Is I'm finding gaps to exploit and ways to get through to the top to basically do the guerrilla warfare piece and topple the business. And then what I do is I show the CEO, here are some things to think about that I think will potentially cause a lot of problems. And then here are some solutions that will hopefully get you in the right direction. And the only way that it's going to happen is through open communication and teaching them that age-old military of it's top down, top to bottom, and then lateral communication that's going to get the job done.
Yeah. So when you go in, because obviously these CEOs are hiring you to come in and look at this process, and what kind of give us some examples of what are some of the critical conversations that you've had to have that may or may not have been well received where that CEO was concerned?
For me, man, it's got to be like you do in Intel, right? You got to read the room. So you got to have a heart-to-heart talk with the CEO. And to me, it's just being honest. That's me. It's being blunt and upfront. And I'll tell them, and I'll ask them too, before I hit full send, switch to guns, I'll be like, do you want a mirror put in front of your face? Because a lot of people can't handle that. But at the same time, most CEOs find that refreshing because one, they called you in for a reason. They called you in because they knew that something was wrong. They just couldn't quite figure out either one, what it was, or two, how to make it right. I say is step one is identifying the problem and step two is washing it off. So they might have identified it, but they don't know how to wash it off. So that's where I come in to be like, look, man, the problem might not be with the people. The problem might be with you because the tail's going to follow the head. And if the head isn't screwed on, then you're doomed. It's just a matter of time. And then that's where I start trying to implement my style of leadership into that person that has worked successfully for me. And most of the time it's received really well. I can't think of one time that it hasn't been, but I always ask, I always say, do you want a mirror shoved up in front of your face? But the thing is, most of their folks won't talk to them like that because they fear for their job. What the heck do I have to lose? Nothing. And plus where we come up as operators in the background or in the, whenever we were, coming up through the ranks, we had to talk to people in the higher headquarters and we had to tell them exactly what was going to be and what was going to happen and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And if they couldn't accept that, then we might not get the operation, but we had to be honest. So it's just taking those exact same principles and exact same things that I learned and applying them to it. And that's most of the time the CEOs are very well received. The information is by them.
So in your experience, I've encountered scenarios both because I have a coaching background as well, worked with sports teams and then even done some consulting with some sports teams and coaches on how they do things, but also in business, even in the military, I saw this. It was usually a couple of different scenarios. You had organizations that were successful because of the leadership. You had organizations that were not successful because of the leadership. And then there were some cases that I saw that the organization was still successful despite the leadership. Have you ever come across any of that third scenario where they're still doing well despite the leadership that's in place?
It's rare, man, because you really have to have an all-star team and you have to have, to keep it in military terms, small unit leadership that is pretty much already doing the job of the boss and everyone is following them because you're going to have some kind of structure. Yes, you can have decentralized command, but at the same time, you're still going to have certain people that are stepping up to be able to assume those roles to get people going in the right direction. Otherwise, it's chaos no matter what. So usually in those scenarios where the top dog isn't doing right, usually it's the small unit guys down there or the team captains even that are rallying the team and getting them right. Now, the thing is that they're only going to get to a certain spot because they have to have everybody that's in their positions working together as a unit and heading in the exact same direction under the same commander's intent to have total success. Like I said, they could have many successes. They could win the battles, but they might not win the war. D3 college and gone and talk to their football teams and soccer teams, basketball teams, things like that. And it might not have been the team, it's the athletic director. And then I go tell the athletic director, dude, you need to step down. And if you don't, here's what's going to happen. And here's what's screwing up. The guy might not like hearing that, but I can say it when the coaches won't, because what are you going to do? Hey man, kick me to the curb. That's fine. But at least that's now kicking around in the back of your head. And hopefully you're taking some of those things on and going, all right, I need to make a change.
A lot of times those scenarios, you've got organizations that they want to hire these all-stars to come in and then be able to work. And then they want to turn around and put their thumb on them and then not allow them to do the things that they need to do. Have you come across any of that?
Yes, one business that I've worked with before where their top dogs were all stars, but the leader needed a little bit of work and they were all usurping him and going behind his back. And all that was doing was causing that particular company to landslide. You talk about morale going down, not knowing what to expect of that leader. And it's tough all around. But yeah, definitely, man. It's like I said, I just say, yeah, they're front office type folks, but at the same time, since they're not the head cheese, to me, that's still a version of a small unit leader stepping up. And it's one of those things where we learned in the teams is in the absence of leadership, lead.
One of the things that I tend to talk on is I talk about resiliency within leadership. And how much have you encountered where the leadership just didn't have resiliency or needed to work on resiliency?
I've seen some where the leaders quit.
Yeah.
I would ask the leader if, hey, do you want me to tell you this stuff with your staff around? Because usually it's criticize in private and then praise in public. But he's like, no, the rest of my team needs to hear this. And I went, okay.
Yeah.
So I gave him a little bit of a taste of what I was going to say. And he goes, go for it. I'll own up to it. And I went, okay, that's cool. So I went out and then for the next 2 hours, I talked to that entire staff. And then afterwards, that dude that was in charge quit. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes guys just see it and they're like, I don't need to be in this job. I need to find another one. Yeah. Or it's to the point to where they get embarrassed because they don't really understand even though I'm prefacing it, I'm giving them the cliff notes of what I'm going to say. And they just don't know how it's going to be received with the other people. And usually I'll hear it a few weeks later. Is it somebody that I've gotten tight with that was in the staff or whatever would text me and be like, yo, you wouldn't believe what just happened. And I went, it was either that or they make a complete course correction on what they were doing. What's more important, the one guy or the entity? So,
yeah. Yeah, because resiliency is one of those cliche words that have just been buzzwords that have been thrown out here in the last few years. And we and I have talked offline about it. Resiliency was just part of our upbringing, the way we were raised and the way we grew up. And It was, you got a mission to do, you do it, you wear a thick skin. And with these combinations of people that are in our generation versus these new and upcoming generations, have you run into any of that where you've had to talk to those new ones coming in about developing their resiliency? Have you had to get any of that?
Oh, all the time. I get asked to do motivational speeches for folks that need just that. And it's the old John Wayne true grit, right? You know, that's another one of the buzzwords that's come back that they're reenacting. Yeah, absolutely. And they'll come and they'll be like, oh my gosh, how did you get through that? And I'm telling you what a human has a capacity for. The fact of the matter is that you have not been pushed to the point to where you have to be resilient.
Yeah.
And the only way that you're going to test mental toughness, the only way that you're going to get tougher, just like with anything, just like in the gym, man, how do you get stronger? You don't walk past the gym. You actually have to go in there and pick the weights up and put them back down and keep picking them up. So you have to put yourself in situations where resilience is the only thing that's going to get you through. Tough times breed tough people. So if you're in a time where things aren't tough, but you want to get tough, go find something that is. Go find something you can fail at and go fail. That's another thing I've seen for kids today, man, is that they're so scared to fail. It's like a no factor. If I'm going to fail, am I going to do it? I keep telling people is that failures are nothing but stair steps or rungs on a ladder to get you to success.
Yeah.
There's a difference between failure or failing and being a failure. Failure happens when you quit. Failing is just a test, a roadblock. That's it. You go around it, under it, through it, whatever you got to do, find a way to keep going.
Yeah. I had somebody say that same thing to me one time. And I asked him, I said, did you ever learn to ride a bike? And he was like, yeah. I said, how many times did you fall down? A bunch. I'm like, why is that any different?
Yeah.
It's just the difference is you're an adult now. Fall down, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on the bike.
Bike just looks different. That's
it.
When
you come in as a new leader into an organization or a team, could you walk people through your thought process and your step process of how you come in and assume that command? What's your thought process as far as your approach to be able to come in and take the reins?
So after a certain amount of time, you develop your own leadership style. Hopefully you've done reading and studied a whole bunch of different leaders to already develop that, what is becoming the Frankenstein monster of leadership that is you, because everybody learn and then experience, right? That helps you positive and negatively and then you have to have the wherewithal to take that 30,000 foot view and make it your own.
Yeah.
But it's when you walk in, it's one of those things, you got two ears and one mouth, right? So listen twice, talk once. You want to sit back and pay attention to what's going on around you. You have to feel the environment. If you step right in and start implementing policy and all this other stuff that you know is the right way to do, you're going to lose the people that you're with immediately because you don't know the environment. Yeah, you might know the job because you've done it before, but you don't know the job as it pertains to that specific environment. You don't know the people. You don't know any of that stuff. Listen twice, talk once. Before you open your mouth, go around and listen to folks. Go around and talk to them. The person that you're doing, just like when we were deploying, right? Sometimes you don't get the opportunity to, but for the most part, when you're doing a turnover, you do right seat, left seat rides. So it's the same thing in business. For those that don't know what that is that what you would do is I'm going to shadow the guy in charge for a certain amount of time. Usually 2 weeks is about enough. Half the time you're shadowing, half the time you're leading with him as your training wheels. Then once the training wheels come off, then you can slowly start to stair step your way into things. And you do that by providing commander's intent and a vision. Once you have that, then everybody understands exactly where it is that you're going, what your end state is, and what their overall task is to do when you're not there. Because you should be able to go as the boss man. You should be able to go on those road shows or whatever and not have to worry about what's going on in the rear. If you have to go take care of family stuff, that's fine. The place ain't going to collapse whenever you're gone. If it does, then you failed as a leader. Because you have not empowered your people to be able to take over when you're gone.
I've seen that way too much in organizations where, people they don't want to develop the people that are up underneath them because they feel like they're a threat or they're going to take something away from them, rather than having that mentality of, this is where I got this idea from outside of the military. Is when I started coaching, we would have these college recruiters that would come and look at players. And I wanted to know what they were looking at, because if I'm going to call up a college and say, hey, I got a guy that I think would be good for your program, I want to be able to be honest about that. And so I would ask them what they were looking at. And they said, we've got a certain eye test that we've got to be able to do. But what I'm really looking at is I'm looking at what that athlete potentially is, not where they're at right now. And so my idea is, as a leader, that's the way we should be approaching people that are up underneath us. That, okay, what's their potential and what can I do to position them in the greatest growth possible?
Yeah, you're right. That's servant leadership. Right. You're worried about the people, because the people are what's going to get you to that end state. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time, which leads you into the transitional leadership model. But again, it's just reading the environment. And the more you know about your people and the more that you put your people first, guess what? They're going to start taking care of you. And by doing that, if there is that snake in the grass that's trying to climb the corporate ladder and get you fired, if those people trust you and they're good people, they're going to tell you. Because that person is a virus, whoever that is. But if you don't lay forth the foundation, you need a rock hard, solid foundation. You need to make it, wide and thick, so that way you can build the building as strong and structurally sound as possible. But if you build that foundation on a swampland or some sand or near an ocean, chances are, guess what? It's just a matter of time before that's going to topple. So you have to have good, hard ground on which to build the foundation. The same thing goes with leadership, man. You have to be able to build the people up and put the people first. It's just, again, lead how you want to be led. If they see that you care, then guess what? They're going to care back. And then that opens up the whole world of conversations. You'll understand how are their kids doing? Is their wife doing okay? Is their husband doing all right? And the little things will spawn those. And guess what? You'll get invited over to the water cooler or after work, and they'll start talking, and they'll start coming into your office, and they'll start giving you life stuff. And that life stuff will then lead into business stuff. And then the trust comes. And then lo and behold, we're a huge team and everybody's working towards the same goal. But you as the CEO, the tail's going to follow the head. You have to lay forth that foundation in the very beginning. And you do so by listening.
One of the things that I've seen as well is there's a lot of emphasis that people start putting on the necessity of having a mission statement or a vision statement, and those things that are put in writing. What's your thoughts or opinions on
like I said, man, for me, it's two things. It's commander's intent. It's nebulous. It's, hey, this is what I eventually want to do and where I want to go. To me, commander's intent is concrete. It is task, purpose, and end state. And that way everybody knows this is what we are. This is who we are. This is what we're doing. This is what I do within that organization. And here's what the boss wants, the place where we're going towards. If it's to be a dominant global firm or something like that, cool. If that's your end state, that's fine. then that goes in your commander's intent, because then everybody knows if what I'm doing today isn't leading towards that end state, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And that's easy to me. That to me, that's more important than a vision statement, because like I said, the vision statement usually is nebulous and flowering and things like that, and isn't really direct. It's just, it's one of those, you read it and go, cool story, bro, but what's that got to do with me?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your overall approach? Because there's two different types of problem solving. You have reactionary problem solving versus proactive problem solving. And there's always going to be instances where you have elements of both of those that you have to deal with. Could you lay out what your approach is to problem solving along those lines?
KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? You have to, like you said, you hit it, man. You said what I was going to say. It's both. It's absolutely both. You have to be proactive as much as possible, but not plan in a vacuum, and then not proactive to the point of paranoia, and then reactive to the point to where you can't be proactive, because then everything becomes reactive, and then that breeds laziness.
Yeah.
Reactive is for those things I didn't even see that coming, no idea where it came from, but now here's another tool for the toolkit that we can plan for. It's like you're driving down the road in Iraq, and next thing an IED goes off. I was ready for that, but I wasn't ready for that ambush that followed it. Next time we're going to be head on a swivel, guns facing outboard, and then everybody's working together, and then you do your immediate action drills. So the same thing goes for a businessman, is that if you don't have immediate action drills for certain things coming, that's going to help you be proactive and not paranoid. And then as certain things happen, that crazy wildfire pops up out of nowhere, then that now becomes something that you can add to your immediate action drill for later. And then you practice it. That's it for me, man.
Yeah. What is your thoughts on what is some of the most critical skills that somebody needs to have to be an effective, proactive problem solver?
It helps if they've actually experienced.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's hard to be proactive if you haven't experienced anything for yourself. That's why it's good, I think, to have a big age group of young kids to bring new stuff in. And then you have to have a bunch of the dinosaurs to be that continuity, that glue that keeps everything together. But then at the same time, those individuals have to be flexible enough to take the new ideas of the younger generations to be able to help move in the same direction. All that comes together, makes innovation. But honestly, it's that mid-level guy that has the experience, has seen and been through a little bit, to be able to coach up the young guys as soon as possible, that this is what proactive means, because it's a train the trainer situation, right? Me as the leader, if I'm not hiring experienced guys, shame on me, because I'm going to have to, you got to give a little money to make a little money. So if you're going to hire a staff and you're not hiring a staff and you aren't willing to pay them for their experience, because the more experienced an individual is, the more valuable it should be to that organization. So they should have pay that reflects this as such, and a position within that organization. But once you have those people locked in, those now become your instructor trainers, and they're the ones that are going to be teaching the young folks, hey, this is the things that we're going to have to look for, and here's how we're going to be proactive. Then even in the beginning, through whoever it is that's doing your hiring, if it's just you, should be able to understand how to vet these people for what it is that you're looking for. And that's one thing I've told CEOs before in the past also. It's what's your vetting process for hiring? If you hired somebody that's a disease, is that their fault or yours? Yeah. What's your hiring process look like? So then it's okay, who's the guy in your hiring? It's not him, and they have a team. What's the criteria for the job? And then whatever that criteria is, do you have a bullet description for what that job is that's accurate to what it is that you want to do? If it's not, why? Go change it. Are you constantly updating if need be? It might not be, depending on what the position is. But that's why I tell everybody to have a list of whatever the jobs are within that organization with a description of what it is that they do. That way there's no question of what's expected of them and what it is that they need to learn, in case you're hiring someone that they may have to the nth degree in one thing that you're looking for. Say they're really good at this certain technical skill, but they're lacking socially and something else here. It's a give and take, risk versus reward. Okay, I have this, but I can train this, no problem. And if you're willing to take that risk and roll the dice on an individual, you've got to be able to have that training to be able to, you're already doing proactive work, even in the hiring process. Yeah. So that's like the step-by-step thing that I'd go through.
Some organizations have this process where they go and they look at, you're subjected to looking at information on paper about an individual and then trying to make a judgment call. And then you go through an interview process. And then sometimes they end up hiring somebody that through the interview process, what they got in the interview process was not what they actually ended up with and ended up having to make a difficult decision? Or do you have any tips for a better process or how to minimize those kind of scenarios where people are looking at somebody that's got a really pretty resume and then they interview well, but then you get them in the organization and all of a sudden they're not what they portrayed themselves to be?
Oh, talking about people that aren't truthful during interviews just to try to get a job. Again, that's proactivity. Plan for it. So if the primary route that you're driving on is IED laden and you can't go there, what do you have? You have a secondary and a tertiary.
Yeah.
So whenever you're having that crew of individuals, just have top three.
Yeah.
If number one has a certain amount of time, guess what? Bye. And then call the second dude up. Hey man, you still looking for a job? And then start over again.
Yeah.
Have a 1 month trial period. Like, all right, we're hiring you on a trial basis. We do it with everyone. It's nobody special. And within that month, on a weekly basis, you're seeing whoever your small unit leader is, and you're reporting to them for a counseling session to see how you're feeling, how you're doing, because usually people within a 1 month time frame, if they're going to freaking fall apart, somebody's going to see it.
Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it.
I've seen some different, a variety of scenarios that people do. I've seen some of them do a 30-day grace period. Some of them do a 90. Even in education, they'll do a 1 year, they call it an interim contract. They don't give them a full contract. They're just on an observatory type contract for an entire year before they'll actually consider them a fully hireable.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, man. As long as you have a bank of people sitting in the hopper waiting to take over that position until you find that individual that's the one, whether they're a ladder climber or, and there's anything wrong with that, but because promote, if you're good at what you do, you should be promoted, unless you're just super happy with where you're at. And then, hey man, go forth and do good things. But that's part of the evaluation, the mentorship process that you should have within a team, and the counseling program that you should have set up. If you wait an entire year and you have nobody sitting in the hopper or in the queue to come take that job, then you may have just wasted an entire year.
Yeah.
So it can be an evolving process, but that's up to you, is how you want to run your show.
Yeah. Some leaders will try to adopt, they'll say, take no credit and take no blame. I've seen scenarios where you have people that are in a leadership position that will take credit for all the stuff that their people are doing, but then end up not recognizing the people that did the work. What are your thoughts as far as how that affects an organization?
It's toxicity, man.
Yeah.
That's toxic leadership. You're now the cancer and need to be cut out. Either fix yourself or need to be cut out. If there's no incentive to do better, nobody's going to do better.
Yeah.
People like being told they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Now, if you stink, you shouldn't be told that. You should be told you stink and you either fix it or get out.
Yeah.
Because that's just business. But if you've got any type of intestinal fortitude, regardless, you're going to try to push through. But at the same time, it's nice to be told, yo, man, you're doing a really good job. Or, hey, you did something I didn't even think of. And that's awesome. And if you have that type of environment, then you may be seeing your future leadership laid out in front of you.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there worried about patting yourself on the back, or, hey, I just got promoted, or this, that, or the other, and you need to show everybody online what you did, get to stepping, man. I ain't got time for you. You're just bound to have a failing organization. You have to. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's praise in public and then criticize in private. Yeah. Unless there's something that the entire team can learn. Like you do that on an op, right? And somebody messes something up, because we always do after action, a little hot wash, right? After you clean the vehicles up and everything's good to go. And before everybody goes and gets food and racks out, we all meet together and we're all sitting there with our pads and pencils so nobody forgets what we do wrong. And that isn't a critique on any one person. It's just that, hey, you did this, and it's having thick skin. You did this. This is where you screwed up. This is where we need to get better. And then whoever it is that's in charge says, yeah, we did that and that. But you also have to be, you got to kind of mom and pop it. Somebody's going to be the heavy, but somebody's also going to be the one, not necessarily a hugger, but at the same time, you have to notice the positive with the negative. Now, us in the military, we're very hyper-focused on the negative. And they say they don't care about the positive, which is fine. That's okay. But at the same time, it feels good every now and again for somebody to go, hey, I noticed you did that. Keep it up. Yeah. It could be something as simple as that. Or, hey, that was awesome. Good job. Keep it up. Fire yourself up, man. So and that's all you need to keep you going. It's like, and then that'll make everybody else want to go, all right, cool, let's get after it. But yeah, the people that are in it for self have that wolf mentality on being a predator, or You have that sheepdog mentality when you really should be there for the people and you're there to protect them. And usually those are the ones that are going to succeed more. And I get the whole dog eat dog thing and whatever, but, and I understand business is ruthless. That's true. But that still doesn't mean that you can't treat people right.
Yeah. So when you guys would sit down and we used to call them after action reviews.
Yep.
I know everybody's got their own terminology based off of their service and all those things. How much of that did that play an integral part in your training cycles that would come up after that?
Oh, huge. I always told people, if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So it's 1, study military history, but 2, study recent history, what we just did. If we're sitting there going through the house and we're doing house runs for 3 weeks or whatever, doing day-night house runs, and we're not writing down all the things, we're literally going to do the same thing over again. And if we screw up, we won't talk about it. And everybody will think everybody else is awesome. That's stupid. Nobody's perfect and everybody can always get better. When you're in a service where you're striving towards perfection, knowing that you're never going to get it, but most of the time it's just a competition to beat the other guy, because that's just how we roll. Guys will go after hours. They'll say, hey, step up and go, hey, this was messed up. This happened. Or, hey, this happened. Now let's think about this and take it from a different direction. All right, fire it up. Let's get in the stack and let's line it up and try it. And then we'll go force on force and see if it works against somebody that's actually shooting at you. Yeah, you have to have the hot washes or the after action reports are absolutely critical. The other part is that you got to read them. So if I'm going on deployment and I'm in any type of leadership position and I haven't talked to the people that are already downrange, or if I'm the first one, if I'm part of the entry force or the entry team, and I haven't done my history studies, I'm wrong. If I'm not reading the intel of what's going out there, it's important, because it's one of those age-old things that intel drives operations or operations drives intel. They're mutually supportive, right? You need both of them. So you have to know both sides of the house in order to get the full picture. So if you're that leader and you're the first one going in and you haven't done the analysis, you're wrong. If you're not the first one there and you're doing a transfer of authority and you haven't talked to the people downrange, when you first pick up that job in the leadership position, one of the first things you do other than meet the fellas is contact your boys overseas. You're wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be seeing what's going on for the very first time when you show up in country.
Yeah.
You're just asking to fail.
Yeah. Should not have an entire deployment of surprise. So when you guys have done those training cycles, did you ever have a scenario where you had somebody on the team that just saw an aspect that nobody else really picked up on or saw that ended up being a critical viewpoint? Did you ever run into any of that? Or
that we used overseas or used in
either way, whether you're doing training cycles stateside or when you go over?
Go ahead.
Where you got to laid out your plan and you're going through your training cycle and everything, and then all of a sudden somebody pops up and says, we didn't think about this. And then all of a sudden you've got to, as a leader, you end up having to make a decision about, all right, what are we going to do with that now?
I've been at the point to where I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And then I grew to the point of, let's give it a shot and see what happens. Practice first. But that was my whole thing, is that we're either going to do a rock drill or we're going to do a tactical exercise without troops, or we're going to do a walkthrough or something just to see how it's going to go before we go live. Or if we're going into an area where we think we're like 100%, this is going to be a game changing, we'll try it in an area that's block 1 and not block 3. You know what I'm saying? For those listening, 3-block war, right? Talking about Somalia. Block 1 is there's people out and it's a normal day and you can lower your rifle a little bit. Block 2, it's nothing but military age males. Things are starting to look a little funky. Block 3 is it's ghost town and spidey senses are going off. I'm at the alert checking every window because something's about to happen.
It's way too quiet.
Yeah. It's that little whip sound. Yeah, man. It's just, you got to know the environment, but absolutely that has happened. And again, to me, that's part of leadership, because it can come from the lowest guy. It'd be like, yo, what about this? We're like, oh, and I've got to be able to say, I didn't even think of that. And whoever the senior enlisted guy is, hey, I didn't even think about it either. Let's give it a go. Yeah. And if you have that type of environment and that young guy or that young team leader or squad leader or whoever it is that came up with the idea, it's just going, all right. And then it says, they'll listen to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Even if it's a piece of gear, piece of kit that shows up. Hey, let's try this. All right, let's go check it out. Yeah. And then we'll go try to break it and then see if it's worth it or not.
Yeah, but then hold up. Here's your toy back.
This didn't work. And it's the best thing I love was when companies came to us and were like, this thing's indestructible. We're like, really?
Challenge accepted.
Yep. But did you roll over it with a mat V?
Yeah. Like that scene. Have you ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Classic.
where he puts the Tupperware bowl up underneath the van and rolls over it.
Dang it, and then rolls off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you never know what's going to break, man.
Yeah.
We actually did that when Nalgene first came out with their bottles. We did that in the Marine Corps, man, as we rolled over it with a Humvee. Because it was like, these things are indestructible. We're like, really? So bunch of grunts, man, sitting there, put it under the Humvee. Blah! Just exploded. We're like, it's not indestructible.
Go back to the drawing board.
Go back to the drawing board. Thanks, Nalgene. Made a good product, but Humvee can't roll over it. I don't want it.
Going back to, you talked about the young guy who comes on the team.
Yeah.
I know that I made that mistake early on when I started getting put in leadership positions, that it was really easy to dismiss the new guy because we just assume they don't know anything. And do you have some advice for people that are those young leaders, how to be able to handle that a little bit better and to not adopt that type of mentality? How do you get them to pause and take that into consideration?
And that's why I always say that and go into companies, and if they don't have a triad or what I'll call a round table of the front office folks, usually the heads of department or COO, CEO, CFO, CMO, those type of folks, get those guys in talking to each other, then usually it's an issue, but I'll try to bring them together and start talking, because if the CEO's new, or if some other type of leader is new, like you have a new department head coming in to take over your marketing team or whatever it is, they have to have a mentor.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they have to have one mentor and two peers. Yeah, they say, oh, you need a mentor, a peer, and somebody underneath you that rounds you out as an individual, especially as a leader. So whoever that mentor is that gets chosen for that person, that's got to be part of their toolkit, and say, hey, this is the type mentality that we're going to have. Everybody has a voice, but you have to also understand situational awareness. If you're the new guy sitting in a freaking bigwig meeting that happens only once a week, and it's a roundtable meeting of just the head shed folks, and they're up on video teleconference and things like that, that might not be the time for you to bring up your idea. Right? So always have something to write on and something to write with. So that way, if an idea pops in your head, write that sucker down. And then whoever their direct supervisor is, go tell them.
Yeah.
And they should always have that open door policy of being able to go, hey, man, they said this in there. I just thought about this. What do you think? Again, if you have a good chain of command, that person goes, yo, Banats over here said, this is what we should do. I think we should try it out. And then that just goes right up the chain of command. And it might be, Banats is seeing the boss man going, hey, what was your idea? And then that's how it gets, put out. Yeah. But the thing is that along the way, you better give Banats that credit.
Yeah.
If he came up with it and it's something that you guys want to implement.
Yeah.
Because one, that shows other people that everybody has a voice, and whether it works or doesn't, we still thank the guy for bringing it up. Yeah. Because you have to be able to screw up. It's just said before, man. You had to go 1 through 6 up before you got to 7 up. So again, learn how to screw up in order to succeed.
Yeah. All the stuff that you've done, what would you say has probably been one of the most difficult decisions that you ever had to make or deal with?
Oh, that's an easy one, man. Telling a platoon that they're not going to war. We were winding down Afghanistan, and we knew that this group of individuals probably wasn't going to see another war in that AO, because the crew that was coming in after us was shutting down the area. So we knew that this was going to be the last one. Yeah. Bending data being what it is, there's only a certain amount of folks that are allowed to come on that part of deployment. And I had 3 elements, and 2 got to go, and I had to pick one that wasn't. And my senior enlisted advisor and I locked ourselves in an office for about 2 weeks, and looked like Ben Affleck in The Accountant, and just writing stuff all over there was everything, every consideration of why not this guy? Why not this guy? Because, and I've said it before in past interviews, it's like benching Larry Bird when the game's on the line for the last shot. Yeah. Or just like, hey, it's the late 80s. I'm going to the NBA finals against the Lakers. I'm going to bench the entire starting lineup of the Celtics. Yeah. So it's just, it's hard to do, man. That was the toughest decision, but it literally came down to how they performed, whether it was on or off training. It was everything. It even came down to how they acted on Liberty. It still kills me, man. Like their faces when I said, you guys are not going to Afghanistan, when they trained so hard, man. I'll never forget it. And that one sticks with me, but it was a super hard decision, and it had to get made. So that was it, man.
Those faces of disappointment. It's almost like your own kids. You,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I spent more time with them than I did with my kids.
yeah, man, that's tough.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where it's like, this is your job.
Yeah.
CO said, this is your troop. Fix it. Tell, or not fix it, but you're the one that has to tell them.
Yeah.
So, and make the decision.
Yeah.
And then you have to go tell the head shed why. And then they're like, check, and go from there. So
yeah,
that was awful.
How did that experience shape your leadership style or your principles and leadership from that point?
I tell you, man, it was one of those things where I kicked myself wondering if, one, I made the right choice, and two, if I'd have more time, could I have gotten everybody to go?
Yeah.
But then it's like, that part wasn't your call. Don't be so full of yourself to think that that was your call. This is the data. These are the amount of people that are set forth to go and deploy. It has to be this number. That you can't help. That you can, but it's still you kicking yourself because he does you boys, man. Yeah. It helped me look at things holistically every single time.
Yeah.
To take that, to step away from a situation and take a 30,000 foot view instead of that 5 meter target right in front of you, to keep the horse blinders always open. Yeah. It helped me look at things holistically, which honestly is helping now in the big business world of being able to take a wrap off and start up here and then start dialing things down for the businesses.
Out of that scenario, and I don't want to get real personal with it, but did that affect any of your relationships with those individuals having to make that difficult decision?
Yeah, the platoon commander came right up to me afterwards and said, "I'm very disappointed."
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was like somebody just shot me in the freaking head, man. Certain things happened along the way. It was one platoon at one point, and then we had to switch to another platoon because of this and this. Yeah. And it was just like a walk away type thing. And then the guys look at you like you've let them down, or they look at you like, what the heck did I do? Why can't I go? Yeah. So,
yeah. And I from that standpoint, it's one of those things you can, especially in that position, you can see it from both sides. This is what you're trying to do. This is what your entire life has been geared towards. And then not being able to fulfill it and having to make that decision, knowing that's what they're going to experience. That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're the guy that's there and you got appointed to a certain position or put in a certain position, or you go in and assume a leadership role, you're going to be called to make the tough decisions that may not make you popular, at least initially. Yeah. Lighten the blow, tell the truth, lighten the blow as much as you possibly can, and try to come up with ways to lift everybody else up if that's a position that you can be in.
Yeah. So when you come in and taking on a new group, there's always that element of, they're calling it change management now. That's another big buzzword out in the business and corporate world is change management. And you can run into a little bit of that. That's not how we used to do it. And that's not how so-and-so did it. How did you handle those situations?
If that's how so-and-so did it, why is he gone and I'm here?
True.
Let's be real here, people. Yeah. That may not be the case. Life happens. People need to move on and things like that. But what we used to did and might could do again, those are just metrics, man. What we used to do is a metric. That's it. All right. Did what we used to did work? Was that heading us in the right direction? Okay. Yeah. This is my job. This is where we need to go. This is after looking and compiling all of the data. If you just make a decision and then don't tell your folks, or you don't prepare them prior to said decision, then guess what? It's going to be a junk punch kind of to everybody. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I don't like people kicking me in the shins and then running. So it's up to them. They have to communicate. So if I can go and say, hey, this is coming, have a meeting, this decision is coming, talk to your small unit leaders if you don't have the time, or, hey, I'm going to be coming around to each one of your departments, have your questions ready and your concerns. So that way I can have everybody's opinion to be able to make the most informed decision and the best decision for everyone. And then after you make the decision, good, bad, or indifferent, you go and tell them, this is the way things are going to go. And here's the way things are going to be. And like I said, used to could, that's just a metric. That's not how we're doing it now. It might be, hey, if you look at it and the data shows this is going to cause us forward progress by staying steady state, hey, man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. Some people, they change of management. Are you a manager or are you a leader? If you're coming in and you should want to be a leader, you listen to the folks and you don't come out of the gates, like we were talking about earlier, you don't come out swinging right out of the gates.
Yeah.
Listen twice, talk once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get all the metrics, then come in and start implementing change as needed. Just because there's new leadership doesn't necessarily mean there always has to be change.
Mm-hmm.
However, depending on how the last leader left, that might be the reason there's change.
Yeah.
So it's all different, and I'll have to take it scenario by scenario.
Yeah. My next question, though, is in that, did you ever have issues where, because sometimes when there's changes happens, so for example, an athletic director leaves,
Yep.
right? And if an athletic director leaves, a lot of times everybody's now worried about their jobs, because in certain industries, it's pretty much traditional that when somebody new comes in, they get rid of everybody. Then they start all over with the new scenario. But
big in athletics.
Yeah. But have you seen any of that in any of the people that you've dealt with?
An absolute clean sweep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd say it affects the team more than it does the staff, whether it be positive or negative. If it depends on that coach. If he comes in with that new sheriff in town attitude and that's not needed, the team's going to fall apart. And he's honestly probably with that attitude, he's just going to get new players anyway.
Yeah.
But I think there's a right and a wrong way to do it, but I absolutely have seen that, man. It just depends on the coach. And a lot of times within athletics, whether it be all the way from high school all the way up to the pros, people get really tight with the head coach, with their strength and conditioning coach, head coaches with their football, if it's their D-line coach or their offensive coordinator, whoever it is. And it's like they've got their staff, those are their guys. And when the hiring process goes down, that's what the contract and the deal is for. So I can't help that. That's a upper management type deal. Yeah. It's just, how are you going to lessen the blow to the folks? So yeah, absolutely. You should be worried about your job if one guy gets fired, or hopefully you wrote a good contract for whatever job that is, but more so in sports and less so in business. Now, I've seen places where a CEO comes with a CFO. That's their money guy. That's the one that I trust. This is the one. And that's worked out just fine. I've seen other ones where they'll come with COO and CFO. Yeah. I've seen some where it's just the head shed starting out. Yeah. So it's all shapes, all sizes, all flavors. To be able to come in, at least for me as an optimizer, to be able to come in and go, all right, here are the things we need to talk about, and here are the things we need to think about to get you going in the right direction.
Yeah. And you always hope that change that's happening is the right decision, and it's going to propel your organization in a positive direction. Right. I have seen one scenario where they got rid of the head guy, that brought in a new guy, and he just made a unilateral decision. And he had great people that were on the staff. He just made a unilateral decision, got rid of everybody, and then brought in some folks. The people that he thought were going to come with him didn't. And then he ended up having to hire a bunch of folks, and it ended up being just absolutely disastrous. And it took years for that organization to get over that.
It's just trust, man. You think of people, you better know the people. Yeah. If you're bringing a team over, that team should be in it to win it, ride or die. They're with you. Yeah. And unilateral decisions are incredibly dangerous, even for the boss man. That's how I always come up. I always talk about the round table, Knights of the Round Table, and how that works. Whoever it is that's your inner circle, you make it a circle so everybody's got a daggum voice. King Arthur was onto something, and that's it. You should not be making, unless it's absolutely necessary, and it's one of those things where it's, hey, everything is going to tank and we have no time, which I would say in business, that's probably Wall Street, whatever, but super rare. A scenario where you can't at least go get somebody's opinion on whatever that is, to make sure that you're making a holistic decision. Because if you're a good leader, you're going to hire everybody around you that's better than you. Yeah. Especially at what their job is, because if that was the case, you could do the job. Yeah. Right? And if you're not hiring somebody that's better than you, then has what it takes, the intestinal fortitude to be able to tell you that, one, you're wrong, and two, here's what's a better idea. And then everybody else can talk about it and go, oh, okay, I got it. That's the way to do it. But if you hire a bunch of yes folks, again, you're leading towards disaster, and somebody's going to end up cutting you out at the knees and going for your job.
Yeah. I saw one scenario where it was a institutional president, CEO, and hired a bunch of yes people up underneath him. And then within about a year, they tried to launch a coup against him, and it ended up having a big investigation, and it got nasty. Yeah. And then ultimately that CEO ended up keeping his position, but everybody else that was involved in the coup, obviously they got terminated. But Yeah, there's been some interesting scenarios out there. When I have guests come on, I try to come up and think of different things that I think other people are going to encounter. That way you give some insight on. And
I think the one that we didn't talk about is the chaos incarnate. Like you'll have a CEO that literally can't make a decision or makes a decision and then makes a snap call of, no, we're going to go do this way. Hey, I think we're going to do this. Things are going this way, so I think we're going to go do this.
Yeah.
I call it chaos incarnate. That also is a recipe for disaster. One, it's going to have your folks working around the clock, and they're going to work if you have good people, they're going to work their butts off for you, but you're going to burn them out. If you don't have a clear cut, this is how phased out plan. That's what the whole commander's intent is, right? A whole phased out plan. This is how we're going to do things. These are my lines of effort, and this is how we're going to tackle them. Then nobody can predict what it is that you're going to do.
Yeah.
If you're completely unpredictable, then you literally are going to have a bunch of people. You've undercut proactivity. Everybody else is just waiting for you to make your next call. And then usually quick calls are rash, and something stupid is going to happen, which usually causes more work for your people, which all that does is make them angry and not want to work there anymore. Yeah. But the only reason they are is probably because there's somebody to their left and their right that's working just as hard, and misery loves company, and suffering sometimes leads to teamwork. Yeah. But at the same time, if you've got the one guy in charge going in a million different directions, that does absolutely no good for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite is when they walk in, they drop an idea. Don't expound on it. Just say, this is my idea, make it happen, and then walk out. And then everybody's left to.
Do we act on that? Now, where are we at now? And then you'll go talk to the boss man. Hey, what'd you make? And then he gets mad. Yeah. That's another problem.
Yeah.
If the boss isn't approachable, again, what good are you?
Yeah. Yeah. The head shed would allow all the lowest level people to be able to come in and talk to him, but it wouldn't allow the mid-management people to come in and talk to him. He only wanted to hear what the ground level guys were, what their opinions were, what they were thinking, and then make decisions based off of what they said, and never have any conversations with the people in the middle.
It's a trust issue. Yeah. He doesn't trust his middle management folks because he thinks that he's being that guy that's going down and I'm talking to the troops. Yeah. But by undercutting your leadership, you've taken all of their steam out of their sails. Yeah. You have to be able to trust them. And if that's the case, and you think that your middle leadership is going to somehow cant what your younger folks are going to say, then you've hired the wrong person. And that middle management person needs to get counseled. But to go around someone, both up and down the chain of command, is just a recipe for disaster. Now, I get that it's going to happen, and sometimes like that middle management person is the problem, and you have to go to that person above them because that's the only way anybody's ever going to listen. That's why you have semi-annual or quarterly reviews, and that's your opportunity to go, hey, what's the problem? Or you have a little whiny box, right? The commander's box where it's just completely anonymous, and have somebody type it out. Don't write it out so you can't figure out that's that guy's writing. Type it out, drop it in, and go, this is anonymous. We're going to deal with it, and this is something that we have to fix. Yeah. Now, you don't weaponize it and use that to say, oh, just because you don't like a guy, because that's another thing too, right? Is that people can use that stuff to try to get somebody else fired. Yeah. Again, it all comes down to trust, man. And folks should be able to tease that stuff out. And you should be able to trust them enough and have them have enough trust in you to have that mutual conversation ability. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on, because I've seen a couple of different scenarios where you have the guy he's more the data technical guy that they put in charge, but he sucks at morale. And then you have the guy that comes in that he's the raw guy, but has poor technical skills. And then there's very few, what I call them the special operators of the leadership world, the ones that can actually do both. What's your thoughts on, or scenarios that you've seen where you've encountered that kind of scenario?
I would say it depends on the job, right? If the job requires somebody that's incredibly technically acumen or has a good high acumen for technical type stuff, and the job is technical, then that's the guy you need in charge, because that's the one that's going to see things, probably because he's watching the world in zeros and ones, or he's seeing the matrix. That's how he's watching things. You need that guy. Now, here's the thing. You either put him in charge or you make him like the number 2 IC technical guy, and you hire that special operator guy that can do it all. And if you've got a whole crew full of a bunch of smart people that are the zeros and one folks, then they're going to understand and they're going to speak zeros and ones. And that guy that's in charge, it's fine, because they know how to hype each other up and do whatever it is that they do. And they can go talk code and be happy, right? The rock guy you don't hire a raw guy. Hopefully that gets teased out. And you shouldn't ascend to a position, either ascension or by hiring, if you are a raw guy.
Yeah.
Only because you shouldn't be in charge if all you can do is freaking get the people going. If all you can do, all you are is a hype man. Hype men are cool, but again, now you're talking motivation versus discipline, right? Yeah. Where motivation is fleeting, but discipline is what's going to carry you through. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying you can't have motivation to spark discipline. And if you do, maybe put those two cats together. Mm-hmm. And one guy can talk this, and another guy can go, yeah, we're going to, which most of the time I want to freaking kneecap that guy anyway, because people aren't stupid, man. They know what's in front of them. And if you're just that guy and you get up to start talking, I'm just going to leave because you're just, all you are is a hot air person. I'd say if you're just that guy, you might want to go pick up some skills to back it up. Yeah. And if you're a leader and you see just that guy, then I don't know, man, a straitjacket. But to me, you shouldn't be holding a position of leadership if you don't have the technical acumen to go with it. Yeah. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to have a person that knows how to motivate that style of individual, then that's a good thing. If they don't have it, then cultivate it within that person. Yeah. Even if it's not their personality, we're like, you want this job? Okay. You're going to learn how to get the folks going. Yeah. Now, granted, like I said, motivation leads into discipline, but discipline's what's going to take over. Most zeros and one folks that love what they do, they already have it. They have the discipline. They don't need that. Yeah. And like I said, that guy that's in charge of them, he'll know how to get them moving. Yeah. And that's that. But like I said, it's time and place, and it just depends on the scenario. Yeah. But you can't have a sole rah guy. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've seen it.
And it probably wasn't a very productive element.
No.
Because a lot of times you'll have that dude that comes by and says the stupid off-color joke or does this, and then it's just like all you're doing is distracting me, man, like from doing real work. And I've told a business recently, I was like, what good? I told him one of the top three. I was in the military, right? Give him three things, but the third thing that I told him was to cut dead weight. Yeah. And they had a guy that was super loud and seemed like the good idea fairy floating around, but didn't really have a lot of, that was it. He was just toe deep in everything that he did. I was like, that guy is going to get a lot of people uncomfortable, which they were like, oh my gosh, how do you know that? I'm going, listen to him. I've been here 5 minutes and he's already irritating me. This guy is not productive for the company. And they went ahead and let the guy go. And then guess what? Things got better.
Yep. All right. We've breached that hour mark, and
oh boy.
And I know you got better things to do and talk to me all the whole time. So
we're good, dude. Any questions or anything pop up?
No, I didn't have any pop up, but no, tell everybody how to get a hold of you and what services do you bring to the table that if somebody wants to hire you?
Yeah, man. TD Richardson on LinkedIn, and then Tommy at definesavagery.com, or go to definesavagery.com. And that's where you can find me currently. We got 3 pillars, and it's motivational, inspired speaking, keynote speaking, along with business optimization. And then we do strength and conditioning and tactical solutions. So everything from concealed handguns up to training executive protection companies.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Approach. Please hit that like button and subscribe for the latest episodes. If you would like to be a guest or would like for Dr. McAllister to speak at your business or event, you can email him at info@drdavismcallister.com. You can also go to his website at drdavismcallister.com.